So, hey all. Unfortunately, I have some slightly bad news. Well, I wouldn't really call it bad, but my mom apparently caught something coming back from her recent trip, so I had to reschedule my New York visit again. But this time it was on her end. But I mean, it's all right. I found a window that I'm gonna try to reschedule for a month from now. So hopefully, the third time is the charm with this because the first time I had a slight sore throat and I didn't want to bring anything down, nor necessarily be traveling while I was potentially ill. And then, of course, and this time it's mom's end. But hopefully, the third time it'll work out and I can actually go and see both my mom and maybe a couple of people in New York, and we'll see how all that works out. But for now, no New York status report because, of course, I haven't been able to get back there yet. But hopefully soon. So I guess that's it for now. On the flip side, that means that I have kind of had an off week, I guess, a little bit for a few reasons. One of my coworkers has gotten a new position, and it was somebody I worked with semi closely. So I mean, it was a little bit off-putting, mostly just because it's one of those happy for them, sad for us kind of situations. Because I know it's supposed to be one of those things that, she goes to school for and all that, and I'm looking forward to good things in her future. It's just unfortunate for us because she was a great team member, and it's kind of just thrown things off, I guess, a little bit because she's been there a long time. But in any case, in writing news, I have been working to try and finish a short story I had started a while ago, and I'm also trying to develop an idea for Pride Month because it was I was approached about developing something for the podcast, and I'd like to try and do it. I'm gonna give it a shot. I need to think more on my idea because I want to have something that's suitable for Pride Month, but not really necessarily like super on the nose. I don't know yet. But we'll see. I'll give it a try, and I'll see if I can't come up with something because, I'm taking a break from the big projects for a little bit just to kind of work on some smaller things, and then maybe see if I can refine exactly my preferential pattern, because I'm trying to figure out how long it takes me to do things, and also worrying less about things being perfect or whatever the case may be. I'm just trying to sort of work on the projects that I'm working on, and I guess bearing in mind that even if they don't, well, I mean, I've always been kind of, I guess, concerned about putting out things that I think are below my quality standards, I guess. And usually whenever I think I might even be approaching that point, it kind of used to make me stop. And that really isn't a good thing to do. And then sometimes I would, reach like the middle of a chapter and I would switch to something else. And I mean, I'm trying to sort of do, focus more on like finish it first, worry about the details later kind of thing, or not even worry, but just less of the, you know, letting the errant thoughts derail me so much. So I mean, it's mixed, but I'm trying to. I guess I'm doing better at controlling uh, the impulses, the anxiety, and I've been trying to do that by limiting how much I plan to do on each night, and it's not what I would necessarily consider a lot, but it also reduces the stress on me trying to do it, and it makes it easier for me to sit down and pretty much guarantee that I'll get it done. So, rather than a little guaranteed progress is better than a lot of speculative progress, if that kind of makes sense. Better a page that you have than however much you wanted to do and didn't get even that much. So, but on the plus side, the short story I think is going all right. It's one of the cases where it's technically like a story without a plot because it's a couple of characters just kind of talking about things, and it's, I guess, sort of an exercise in that. But I'm kind of using it also to sort of just expand on some things that you might not necessarily have time to do in a larger piece. Just have just like a little kind of slice of life sort of thing in one of my ongoing projects. And it's like I'm still working on a bunch of my other ideas. I would like to at least get most of them to a point where I have kind of like the first act hammered out, just so that I have things to work on, because my goal is to keep myself constantly working on new material so that I always have something to work on. And I, with the software that I use, and my efforts to try and stay focused on one project at a time, and switch tracks when it's a better point to do it, like the end of a chapter or the end of an act or something, if I need to, that is a better way for me to handle it. So for right now, I'm working on the short story. I will probably spend next week working on the Pride Month idea and try and see if I can't finish that in the course of a week. And then after that, I'm going to go back to one of the big projects. I don't know which one yet, but I guess I'll just kind of keep working on them until they finish, or until I get some more progress or whatnot. We'll see. But that's it for right now as far as that goes. Video news today, I'm probably going to take it a little light. I am working on a vlog right now, which I do a vlog every time I sit down. And I will probably do the audio recording for a couple of the other projects, but I don't know if I'm actually going to film something today. I might just leave all of that for the next time, because just sort of batching the jobs together and then finish like a couple of videos at the same time, but we will see. Let's see. I guess video news, that's pretty much it. Books I'm reading. I have finished the first novella in the complete Red Vixen adventures. I'll say preliminarily that I like the first novella. I kind of think that the ending didn't quite hit the way I think that I would have liked it to, but I'm not going to say too much about that here. I mean, it certainly wasn't anything that I would really complain about, but just, I don't know. There was some stuff that kind of felt like, given what had been established, it wasn't quite, I guess, the smoothest dismount maybe, but no complaints. Not really. But I'm looking forward to reading the rest of it, and I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be really enjoyable, because I mean the writing style is good and the characters are interesting, and it's a good series. I've been enjoying the first novella so far. It's just, like I said, there's and I know that this was one of the early projects, so I mean it's perhaps understandable, but and also I would have to say that I guess things that I would term as like legal drama kind of stuff is always tricky to do, but by and large, I mean I would still recommend it, even though it wasn't, like, let's just say it was really good. Was it exceptional? I don't know if it quite reached that point, but it was very good, and I will definitely say that I really enjoyed it. But as you all know, and I'm trying to be as inclusive as possible, because I know sometimes guys is just a colloquialism, and I don't think anybody's going to be mad at me for that, but I'm trying to be mindful of that sort of thing. But anyway, let's see, what was I saying? Oh yes, the difference between really good and exceptional. It's like exceptional always requires a couple of things that I have talked about in some of my review videos to really get the point where I am impressed beyond just enjoying whatever it is. Because there's a lot of things that I like, but there are only a small fraction of these, and this is tough. So it's not like it's any failing for anyone not to be exceptional, but at least in my estimation, it's like exceptional really has to just knock it out of the park. There has to be at least one surprise that I don't see coming, which really didn't happen in this first novella for Red Vixen Adventures. It was good. It was competently written. It was an excellent story, but did it surprise me? Not really, and I'll I'll get into that more in my specific review. But suffice to say, it was good. But in order to earn the exceptional appellation, it has to do a little more than the first novella did. Now, that doesn't mean that the rest of the collection might not do that. It might be an exceptional collection, but we'll see. I intend to read the rest of it as time permits. But I guess we will talk about that. Let's see. I losing track of myself here. It's kind of been that kind of day. It's like, but let me just say that Complete Red Vixen Adventures has been really good. I'm also reading Rafts. I am about 4 chapters into Utunu's first novella. I believe it's a novella anyway. I'd have to say that that's really good too. I've been enjoying it. And I have to give him a lot of credit for being able to write a compelling, interesting narrative with, at least up to this point anyway, only 2 characters. Because it's always been, I guess, something that I've found a mark of a really good writer, to be able to handle small scale scenes, because it's a lot harder than I think most people would believe it to be. It's with any of those scenes, it's one thing if you have a cast of thousands, if you have all these different settings, everything that you can do with it. But if you just have 2 characters in a room, keeping that interesting for a long period of time, that is a skill. That is a skill that I think is an indicator of somebody who has a pretty good grasp on the details, on the character dialogue, on an interesting setting. And, this is, at least at the beginning, it's very intimate, I would say. Not intimate in the adult, the sexual way, but intimate in that this portrait, this, the eye of the camera, so to speak, only focuses on 1 or 2 characters so far up until at least chapter 4. And that may change later on in the book. But, again, it's like I've often said that I'm impressed with sitcom writers because they manage to make a lot of funny material for however many scripts over the course of a number of years, with basically the same 5 or 6 characters and 2 or 3 settings. And that's hard. It's like, if you think it's not, then, I think you need to really look at a couple of your favorite sitcoms and just kind of keep track of all the major elements. Just how many people do we have on the cast? How many places do they go? And then you have to think about all these different scenarios that these writers have to come up with that just use these elements. Because, sitcoms, they're never going to be, or at least as far as I know, they've never been big budget productions, right? They usually are like, sometimes they're filmed in front of a live audience, which means you're also limited to what you can do. So this means, a couple of sets, usually, like a diorama kind of set where you have 3 walls and maybe a ceiling, but probably not because of the lighting. So, that's why most sitcoms, particularly in the 80s and 90s, and maybe earlier than that, they had a certain look. So that, you were always viewing things from the same angle. So you always had to be filming, with the live audience in mind. Or if you didn't have a live audience in mind, usually a lot of the sitcoms still filmed the same way. It's like, it's only, I think in recent years that you're starting to see sitcoms that don't do that, that have like actual sets or something, that shoot in a house or something of those lines. And it's something to be noted. So I give Utunu a lot of points for coming up with a good story so far that has to do with very few characters and a limited setting, because you can't just introduce extra characters or whatever to bring some drama into the narrative. It all depends on 2 characters, a place, and the effort to try and figure out how to work together. And it's really interesting. It's like, I initially wasn't crazy about the character, having a human protagonist, but I kind of think it really works here, because it's just one of those things that the presence of the human protagonist really kind of accentuates like the whole furry element of the book, and it really does a good job of just kind of, I guess, cementing the whole effort to communicate with somebody that's not like you kind of thing. And I'll have more to say when I actually do a formal review later. Now, I do want to read Scars of the Golden Dancer by Night Eyes Dayspring, but I haven't gotten to it yet because right now, anyway, I haven't had the opportunity. Now, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read the rest of the second novella in the Red Vixen Adventures series, and then depending on what finishes first, either Rafts or the Red Vixen Adventures novella number two, I'll probably switch at that point to Scars of the Golden Dancer because I do want to check that out. And as I've mentioned before, you know, novella collections, anthologies, they're a lot of work because I like to give a little bit of personal attention to each and every piece of the novella, give everybody their individual reviews, and also kind of take the time to look at each story on an individual basis as well as a collective nature. And as you've seen, if you've seen the one I did on Swordmaster's Tale, you'll know that it takes a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of different segments. And I kind of think that as a fellow writer, that I have a perspective that I think most armchair reviewers aren't going to have. And I like to think that I also give reasonably fair reviews that, I don't criticize just for the sake of doing it. I try and make sure that's like whatever I say is backed up by what I expect from a story. And I mean, sure, there's a little bit of personal stuff in there, but that's why you go to different people for reviews for their personal perspectives. And I kind of think that, as somebody who kind of knows a lot of these writers, somebody who has, read some of their work before, that I can sort of be in a good position to sort of provide a unique review and, something that you can look back on in later years if that's something you want to do. Or if you're just interested in checking out the collection, you can look at what I say, and I try not to do any spoilery stuff, or if I do, I always try and tag it within the video. So, be mindful of spoiler tags, and, then just give my opinion, and you can look at it, you can agree, you can disagree. I mean, again, opinions vary. It's like I'm not saying that my opinion means that I'm right on any of these or any of that at all. But, this is just how it hit me as a reader, how it hit me as a fellow writer, like what I might have done if it had been my story in some cases. But I mean, for the most part, I definitely plan to do full reviews of When the World Was Young and also the Red Vixen anthology, and it'll take a while, but it'll get done eventually. So, that being said, I can also say that plans are still in existence to visit Mom. I'm just going to have to try and reschedule my flight for probably the first week of May, because the end of the month is always a tricky time for me to go anywhere. And I've also got to make plans for, I guess, the next FurryCon we'll be attending, which at this time is scheduled to be Alamo City Furry Invasion in October. I did get an invitation to potentially be going to MFM in September, but I tend to think like that's going to be something that neither Shrag or I is going to necessarily want to do, because we're going to be traveling to Star Trek Las Vegas in the beginning of August. And then middle of October, we'll be doing ACFI, which we can drive to, so it's not a flight. But I tend to think like he's not going to want to fly to Memphis in the middle. And I think I probably won't either, because it's a lot of stuff close together. And we usually like to kind of spread our trips around just because, it's a lot of work. It's a big disruption. It's a lot of things to plan for. Not that I don't enjoy, FurryCons. It's like I really want to go, at least one this year. At least one FurryCon every year is kind of at least going to be my goal for the foreseeable future. Maybe two, especially if I start selling books next year. But one thing, first things first, I think that August to mid-October is a good break because that's about 2.5 months. Whereas if we go to MFM, which is Labor Day weekend, I kind of think that might be a little tight, because it would be a con, then about 5 weeks later another con, and then about a month later another con. So I tend to think like that's probably just going to be a deal breaker for us. But that being said, for now, I would like to just say that that's probably what we're going to do for this year, and that'll probably be it for this year. Star Trek Las Vegas, ACFI, and that'll probably be all. And I guess that's it for now. I would definitely have to potentially talk to some friends of mine about possible plans for attending TFF next year, because we had kind of written it off this year at the very least, just because it was just a little complicated. But it is a close convention. I guess ACFI is also the same, but I want to have at least one convention where it's all fun, and at least one convention maybe where I'm focusing more on business, but I might still take my suit anyway, or a suit or something. But I guess that's it for now, and I will talk to you all later.
If you like werewolves, check out my book Blue Moon, available in paperback and ebook on Amazon. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, click the subscribe button and leave a comment below. Meow.